This is Metabolic Mastery, a KORR Medical Technologies podcast dedicated to advancing knowledge and practice in metabolic testing. Welcome to Metabolic Mastery, brought to you by KORR Medical Technologies. I'm Dr. Marc Humbert, and this is my co-host, Dr. Cameron Garber. And today we're going to be talking about tips that you can give your clients in preparation for the holidays. It's a great time of year. It's a delicious time of year, but it's also a time of year that people often get derailed from their health and fitness plans. And so we'll talk about some ways to stay on track. And really, it's a larger conversation about metabolic health. And sometimes the conversation just gets narrowed down to weight gain or weight loss alone. But really, that ends up being a proxy for metabolic health. And so while we'll use some of the language of pounds and weight gain and things like that, understand that what we're really talking about is preserving metabolic health, maintaining, improving metabolic health, not just over the period of the holidays, but with that long-term focus.
Yeah.
And I think this is really the frame going into this is, while yes, we want to enjoy life, we want to enjoy individual events, we have short-term goals or short-term things happening, zooming out and taking a look at the long game. And that this is not any one year, any one season, but it's what am I doing for my health over the next 5 years or 10 years, et cetera? How do I make decisions that are going to help me be metabolically healthy now and over the long term?
Right. Well, and so the idea is, let's not throw all of our hard-earned progress that we've been doing for the last 5 years or however long, and kind of throw it out the door just for the holidays. And that often happens. So the phrase used to be that the average American gains 6 to 8 pounds over the holidays. Turns out they did some other studies. So that was based on surveys where they would survey people through the holidays. And because they would see fluctuations of, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds sometimes because of holiday parties and other things, they would rate themselves as having gained that much. When they actually did studies that looked at how much weight they retained at the end of that period, it actually wound up to being about 1 to 2 pounds. And so that 1 to 2 pounds, the problem is they tended not to lose that 1 to 2 pounds. And so it's still fast forward, 15, 20 years, and you've got 30 or 40 pounds of extra weight just from the holidays alone, which is kind of not ideal. When we talk about the long-term plan, if we're kind of throwing away the long-term plan during the holidays and sabotaging ourselves so that it's harder to stay on track, that becomes really frustrating to the long-term plan. And so let's talk about some ways that we can avoid the self-sabotage during the holidays and stay on track so that we don't have that just 1 to 2 pounds. It's not a big deal. But when that 1 to 2 pounds becomes your new normal, when we kind of accept that and that becomes our new normal, that adds up and compounds over the years. And the next thing you know, we've got a little bit of extra weight that we're packing around, and our metabolism just has to struggle that much more to get back on track after 2 or 3 months of abusing it with processed foods and higher calorie amounts than we're used to and things like that. And so let's give our metabolism a shot in the arm by not sabotaging it for a 3-month period. And so a lot of times people will say the holidays start with Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I personally believe that the holidays start with Halloween, because we have this day and we usually have some parties leading up to it and things, and parties are usually a fairly big food trigger. So we have some parties leading up to it. And then on top of that, we have our kids' Halloween candy that's sitting there, and it's very tempting to nosh on that.
It's called a dad tax.
Yeah, dad tax. Exactly. You go through the bag and you find which are your favorites, and
100%.
That's what you do.
Yeah. We're teaching children, taxation principles. It's civic education.
Taxation without representation. That's what we're teaching them. So anyway, that's the idea, is it really does start earlier, and we have then this huge 5-pound bag of candy that's sitting in our house.
Yeah.
That we then, what do we do with that? And then we have that until Thanksgiving hits, and we have this big meal, which one big meal isn't so tragic, but then we have the leftovers for several days and all those things. But it kind of is this cascade of family parties and events and work parties and things where there's often really delicious food, that we only get once a year. And so it's easy to be like, oh, I love this time of year. And we often overdo it, but not just one day, which is fine.
Yeah.
For the most part, one day is not gonna, sabotage us too hard. But it's, 5 days, 6 days, it's, several days out of a 2 or 3 week span that can sabotage us a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things is it's so easy to get into that all or nothing thinking, right? It's like, oh, I ate this way one day. I know other things are coming up. Like, I'll just jump back on the horse in January, right? Like, there's a reason that there's so many gym memberships come January, right?
Right.
Is because it's been this basically 3-month period of it's like, I don't even know what happened, right?
Yeah.
And so just, again, this is not about shame. This is really about how do I just keep things on track and treat myself well over the long term, right? Again, not like it's perfectly, normal, perfectly fine to enjoy those things. It's just at what level do we enjoy them?
Right.
And I think this is one of the things that I was looking at some stuff on people with what they call an obese resistant phenotype. That just means that like they tend to not gain as much weight over, years and decades as other people. And what are some of the reasons behind
Those
that?
naturally skinny people
Those
that we all
naturally skinny
hate.
people, right? And so one of the things that, you probably have someone you're like, oh my gosh, they just eat so much food and they never gain a pound, right? Yeah. And one of the things is that at any given meal, like they might eat a lot, but we don't necessarily observe their behavior over, days, weeks, or months.
Right.
And while like individual meals might be larger, are they snacking as much throughout the day? Probably not, right?
Or that may be their only meal.
Or that may be their only meal, right? Or they're not doing that every day. It's just when we have get-togethers, maybe they eat like that for a few days, but then they go back to their normal pattern of eating.
Mm-hmm.
But we can mistake that it's like, oh, well, like if they can do it, I can do that. And we're just not aware of the other factors surrounding that person's lifestyle, their choices, their psychology and everything.
Their activity levels, digestion,
Yep, exactly. So many factors play into how any one individual's metabolism is working, right? And so understanding some basic principles and having some guidelines. You can think of it like in I always liked in bowling having the bumper walls up because I was just terrible. I would I don't care that I'm like I need to get one that little ramp too that you can pull up and just drop the ball down on. Anyway, maybe not that extreme, but the bumpers are nice because then I don't lose every it's not a good ball every time. Anyway, but like having those guidelines that I can kind of bump up against, but that like help me stay on track can be really nice. These are not these rules that you have to follow and you can't transgress these rules. But having some guidelines can really help for staying on track and for helping you be more aware of what's happening to your own body and learning to listen to the cues and to calibrate those cues so that you can respond in kind, right? So that I can maintain a healthy weight, that I can maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Well, it's definitely a skill, right? Making some of these decisions, some of the things we're going to talk about are skills or habits or patterns that you have to develop in your life and lifestyle. So it may not go perfectly well this season. That's okay. Like just keep refining that and keep working on it and practice these principles throughout the year because there are other family parties and other get-togethers and things like that. And so, these are principles that you can practice and get better at. So now that we've set the table, let's get into what are some of these tips then that we can use for maintaining a healthy long-term plan through the stress of the holidays.
Yep.
And the first thing I would say that we do is get your metabolism tested. So it's super important to do an RMR and a VO₂ test kind of right leading up to the holidays. I'm a big fan of quarterly testing. Mm-hmm. Some people do annual or semi-annual or things like that. Quarterly really does, for my lifestyle, is really helpful because I do different activities throughout the year. And so to redial in kind of this next phase of my training, if you will. So in the winter, I like to more periodize my training and focus more on strength training, building up a little bit more strength because I'm not outside in the mountains quite as much. And I like to do a lot more base training, just boring miles on the treadmill in my zone 2 that is just like trying to maintain that aerobic fitness as much as possible. So when I hit the trails again in the spring, I'm not starting from square one. And so, that's kind of my game plan. And so getting a really good RMR test, a VO2 test allows me to tackle that well. So the RMR test gives you that holiday baseline.
Yeah. Well, and it's just really nice having that going into the holiday season. I'm like, oh, this is where I'm at. This is what I need to maintain. This is what, if I'm trying to lose weight, probably, a little bit difficult, right? But this is what I'd want to eat. And then adding a surplus. What is that going to look like? And so just having that holiday baseline just helps us make better decisions. And I think to some people, it's like that can feel very restrictive, right? I only have this many calories.
Right.
But the nice thing about that is that when we're doing the testing, it's specific to your body, specific to your physiology. We're not relying on calculators. We're not relying on predictive equations, which can be like 10 to 30+% off.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because while it's good at looking at metabolism at a population level, there's high individual variability. And so that can under or overestimate your amount. So like you've seen this in the actual clinic of very similar clients having very different metabolisms.
Oh, absolutely. So, and that's a lot of these tips that we're going to talk about today are gathered from, 13 years of helping people to maintain a healthy weight and improve their health and fitness profile. And so that's a lot of where this comes from. And so the person people you're talking about, 2 people that came in back to back, demographically the exact same: height, weight, age, gender, ethnicity, everything. And so you would think they'd have the same metabolism. The predictive equation put them at 1,800 calories. One came in at 1,500. The other came in at 2,300. And so huge gap, 800 calorie gap between these 2 people. And one we would have been overfeeding by 300 and one underfeeding by 500. And so by getting those dialed in numbers, it's really, really helpful to be able to say, okay, here's where you're at. And so, Mark, we were talking about this earlier about our calorie budget Tetris. One of the things that we talk about with people in our clinic is what we call calorie budget Tetris. So I hate calorie counting. It's tedious, it's monotonous, it causes a lot of kind of emotional scarring, if you will, for a lot of people. And so I don't love calorie counting, but I do think calorie awareness is helpful, of just being aware of how many calories are in the meal that you're having and generally aware of how many calories you have for the day. So when we give an RMR report after somebody's done a test, we give them what their resting metabolic rate is, which is, in our clinic, we say that you shouldn't eat less than that typically. You shouldn't eat fewer calories than that resting metabolic rate because we want to preserve your metabolic rate as you lose weight and things like that as much as possible. But it also has this maintenance calorie range. And so you've got this range of calories that you can eat every day. So maybe on a day where you have a family party, you're closer to the maintenance value, and that's totally fine. Because that doesn't mean you're going to gain weight. It just means you may not stay on your same trajectory of losing weight. And that's fine. Through the holidays, I would always tell this to my clients who were more weight loss clients, that was one of their goals. And I'll preface that by saying, I actually tried to talk them all out of being a weight loss client and say, no, we're going to focus on the elements of your life and lifestyle and let weight loss be the natural result of living the healthy lifestyle. So I don't like to focus on weight and weight loss, really. But for those people who were more conscious of that, and that was part of the longer term goal, was to get to a healthier body weight, I would always say, if you can make it through January and not gain weight, if you can be where you're at, I'm fine if you didn't lose any weight. Like getting through the holidays and the winter time and maintaining constant is a huge win, because normally you would have gained weight and gone the other way. So if we can make it through this period and we're still level, then huge win.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of the idea, is by getting this RMR tested and getting that holiday baseline, we can play this calorie budget Tetris, which is, if I've got a calorie budget then of 2,200 calories, that gives me 600 for breakfast, 600 for lunch, a couple hundred calorie snacks, and then, dinner, I can eat a little bit more. And so you kind of know those ballpark figures for each meal. And so okay, my breakfast was 560 calories. It's within that 600 calories. I'm good to go. Just like Tetris, when we fit those blocks together, the line disappears. You can forget about it and not stress about your calories. You just know for each meal. And so you can know if you're a little bit over, then you need to be a little bit under on your next meal. Or if you know that whole day is going to be a little bit over because of a family party and things, you can, be a little lighter on your meals leading up to it and the meals the next day after it, and kind of shift your calorie budget around.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we tend to think of physiology in these very discrete chunks, right? It's like 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. Like our body is just like, our body doesn't have any concept of the time that
It doesn't know that your fitness program started over on Monday, right?
Exactly. And so we can get over-focused on what happens any one day, right? I went over calories one day. Like our body isn't just like, oh my gosh, I got to add like 5 pounds of fat today, and then tomorrow, I got to get rid of 5.
Right.
It's just these trends over time. And so kind of thinking about like, what am I doing over the week? And similar to a budget, financially, it's like, okay, I have a trip coming up. I'm going to set aside this money and I'm going to spend a little bit more here. And so we can do the same thing, right? Maybe in the days leading up, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna do some more intermittent fasting, or I'm gonna eat a little bit less over the week before and the week
cut
after.
it to 400 calories for breakfast and lunch.
Yeah,
and things. Do a small enough change that you're not hungry or miserable.
Yeah,
but enough that you're putting some calories in savings.
Yep. And then having to spend. And so it's kind of like, what's the weekly average, or what's the rolling average,
right?
Instead of these like discrete time chunks, because I think that can just cause some we can put some shame into that. We just get really anxious about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads into our next tip of weighing yourself often. And that's another one that can cause some shame. And one of the reasons is because a lot of the times we get into the habit of, I ate a lot and now I'm going to go weigh myself. Yep, I knew I ate a lot. Look at how much the scale changed. And again, we can have quite large daily fluctuations. I ate more at this particular meal. I weighed myself at a different time. I had a really high salt intake.
Yeah.
This period of time. I'm, hormonal changes throughout the month. Maybe being on the period can cause daily fluctuations that can cause us alarm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had one meal one time. This is true confessions moment here. I had one meal one time at Thanksgiving where I gained 7 pounds, So pre-meal and post-meal, I was 7 pounds up during one meal, which is kind of crazy. But then I didn't actually gain that much weight, right? Because of digestion and other things, like you don't actually gain that much weight. So weighing before and after a meal is probably not a good idea. That's going to stress you out and things like that. So being consistent on when you weigh and how you weigh, that's more important. So like, I prefer to weigh fasted first thing in the morning, use the restroom, get up and weigh.
Yep.
That to me just keeps as many factors as I can consistent. So I'm comparing apples to apples. If I weigh at the end of the day, I'm going to be up every time and then I'll be all stressed out. Not really, because I know that, but it does create more like, oh, I failed today mentality. And when we collect all of these, oh, I failed today moments, we tend to get more of a negative relationship with food. So if every time we do have treats or whatever it is, and we beat ourselves up for that, it really creates this negative relationship with food versus saying, okay, because I made that decision, what are the other cascades of decisions that I need to make? Because I'm going to this family party, what other decisions that I need to make? It's more about the mindfulness of it than, I guess, mindfulness at the end of something is usually just beating ourselves up. Whereas
not too mindful.
Right. It's not too mindful. Whereas mindfulness ahead of time or mindfulness in terms of like, okay, because I did this, what are the healthy choices that I can make to help balance that out? Not even counteract, but just balance it out.
Yeah. Well, and I think the way you said that, what are the healthy choices I can make? Not how do I punish myself because I slipped up.
Right. Because I had that whatever, I need to go now spend 5 hours in the gym. Like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, and what Cameron mentioned is like what small adjustments can I make so that I can continue to make those healthy choices.
Right.
You know, if it's like, okay, well now I'm not going to eat for 3 days. Well, then I'm going to be starving. I'm probably going to be irritable, and I may end up binging,
Right.
you know, after those 3 days versus like, you know what, these meals I'll make a little bit smaller. I'll add a little bit more activity into the day, and then we can manage those decisions and build out over the long term again.
Right. And it may even be just own it and move forward. Like, yep, I went a little crazy and there's not much I can do about it at this point, and that's fine. I'm just going to move forward from here and try next time to adjust some things so that I'll do better. Like, it's okay that we have bad days. Like, you look at pro athletes and they have bad games sometimes, and it doesn't mean that they're not still great athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just happens. We don't always perform our best, and that's okay.
Well, and what you mentioned, like over the short term, that trajectory might change, right? That weight loss may not be as steep or whatever the goal is, but then we can get back on the horse and get back on that trajectory. And I think one of the difficult things is so many of us have, like, for this event, I need to be at this weight.
Yeah.
And I actually had a conversation with my friend who had a really interesting conversation with a client. He's like, okay, you want to lose 30 pounds. What if that's 30 pounds of muscle? Oh, no. So you don't really want to lose 30 pounds. Like,
Right.
It's just, I'm wanting to look a certain way. I'm wanting to feel a certain way, etc. And so one of the things to think about is, you know, we talked about at the beginning that weight loss is a proxy for metabolic health.
Yeah.
Like if I could lose 30 pounds of weight and have it be mostly muscle. Like that's going to be a net negative for my metabolic health.
Right.
And so it's not just about the weight loss, it's the composition of that weight loss. And even with fat, like there are different distributions in our body where it's more or less harmful.
Mm-hmm.
So our subcutaneous fat, the fat just beneath our skin, doesn't seem to have the same metabolic effects as the fat that's like in and around our viscera, or fat that gets into organs. So we see like fatty liver disease, we see fat infiltrate into muscle. That's when it starts to have these really negative effects in terms of metabolic health.
Right. It acts like a hormone and can downregulate certain processes and other things like that in our body that negatively impact our metabolism.
Yeah. And so sometimes when we have this major focus on the weight loss alone, we can miss that larger picture.
Yeah.
And so we know that there is some loss of muscle mass typically with weight loss, but we can actually counteract a lot of that with regular resistance training. And sometimes what we'll see happen too is that people can have what we call body recomposition without the weight even changing that much on the scale. So there is some fat loss, but there's also muscle that can be gained at the same time. If there's not that really big surplus or that really big deficit, if it's more of a fine tuning, we can see that fat loss while there's muscle gain. And so the weight on the scale might not change, but the composition can be different.
Oh, and that frustrates a lot of people that are last 10 pounders, right? That it's just those last 10 pounds. And it's like, for the last 10 pounds, you're focusing on the wrong thing. It shouldn't be about pounds at all. For the last 10 pounds, it should be more about what can I do? How can I move? How fit do I feel? How do my pants fit? Things like that are a better indicator than the weight on the scale, especially for those last 10 pounds, because that usually is more of a trade-off of muscle mass and bone density and other things that as we're improving our fitness and getting closer to our goal, we see more of those physiological changes that sometimes can add a little bit of weight, even though we look better, we feel better, we fit better into our clothes. Often 160 pounds of fat can look very different than 160 pounds of fit, right? And so we can be very muscular at 160 pounds, or we can be quite fatty at 160 pounds. And the weight is the same, but the look is very, very different.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's something we have to be careful of is this fat weight or fit weight, and focusing less on the weight on the scale and more about the metabolic health. And another reason why getting that RMR tested at the beginning and end of this holiday season is going to be really helpful at tracking how did I do in preserving my metabolism instead of maintaining my weight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, did I keep muscle mass on, right? Did I keep regular exercise?
Yep.
And did I keep that system tuned up as much as possible,
Right.
so that there aren't those big changes.
Right.
So,
And so objective data like weighing yourself, like an RMR, can be really helpful, but let's not stress out too much about what that number means.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into some of the mindful eating tips. Some just things that, like, as you're at these events, Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and all those other things in between. How do I make healthier choices? How do I be mindful about what I'm putting on my plate, what I'm taking in? So the first one is to separate your portion.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Cameron earlier about this. I think we all love brownie batter, right? That's kind of a universal thing. Maybe not. Maybe some people don't like chocolate. Anyway, brownie batter. I love brownie batter.
Yeah. It's
I remember,
delicious. Or cookie dough.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember this one time I was like, well, I like brownies, but I love brownie batter. And so I'm just going to make a whole thing of brownie batter and I'm just going to eat that instead of the brownies. And it was not a great experience. I was like so sick. And I was just like, I'm supposed to be enjoying this as I'm like shuffling more brownie batter. And it's like,
maybe if I eat more, I'll start to enjoy it.
It'll start to enjoy it more. And so what was interesting is it's like when it was just that like little taste, right? Those couple of spatulafuls at the end.
Right. Licking the spoon or the stirring whatever.
Yeah, it was great. But like all of that at once, right? Having the entire portion in front of me did not work so well.
That's funny. Yeah, well, and that definitely happens, right? Where we overdo it with some of the things that we actually enjoy. But so by separating our portion from the source of it, so not snacking from the bowl or the baking tray, or as you're cooking, not just taking little spoonfuls, taste tests or licking the spoon, things like that, that still counts. Or that little bit of ice cream that's stuck to the lid, that still counts.
That.
I know. Well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, those taste tests still count. Those calories still count. And so it's all about a calorie surplus. If we're in a calorie surplus, the likelihood that we'll retain more of those calories is higher. And so we have to be careful there that we are mindful in the way that we're eating and that we separate out our food that we choose to eat from the food that we just kind of are compelled to eat when we're snitching from a bowl or things like that. And so grab a plate, a small plate usually helps, but grab a plate, portion your food out and eat that amount instead of just snitching. Hors d'oeuvres and things like that can be really easy just to keep hitting that cheese plate. And the next thing you know, you've eaten a whole brick of cheese.
It's true.
Not that I'm speaking from personal experience or anything.
I love it. Well, I think a great example of this is, like, who hasn't watched a TV show and like popped a couple bags of popcorn, put it in a giant bowl, and then just demolished it? Maybe I'm alone in that. I've done that. True confessions time.
I definitely refill the bucket when we go to the movie theater.
100%. Oh my gosh. My problem is I like eat half the bucket of popcorn before the movie's even started, right? It's just...
So
anyway.
we go late now and miss the previews so that anyway.
There you go. So, but like, it's just so easy when that's just in front of us, especially when the activity that we're not doing is eating. When we're sitting around talking to people, when we're watching a show, something like that, it's so easy to kind of get in that mindless eating phase. And because that entire portion is in front of us, we just continue snacking.
Right. So instead of having the big bowl, like go get a little paper bag or go get a smaller bowl.
I love those little popcorn bags. They're really cute.
Yeah. So get something like that are really helpful to have, because you can say, this is how much I want to eat versus how much I would eat. And it slows down how fast you eat it. When you have a smaller bag, you tend to like eat one kernel at a time instead of I accuse my kids of just grabbing a handful and rubbing it on their face, hoping that some gets in their mouth, but most of it just on them and the floor.
Oh yeah,
I'm fairly confident that's how they do it. Because
I've definitely done that before, just like the face full and then some.
And
just you save it for later.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, but yeah, by portioning that out, it slows down how quickly we eat it. We meter that better, and we eat the amount that we choose to eat instead of the amount that we're compelled to eat because of our situation.
Absolutely. All right, next tip. This is a big one. I feel like this is super hard at the holiday times, and also when there's just really, really good food.
Yeah, like family parties, the traditional recipes that you have. Yeah.
So good.
These are all my soapbox things. I feel like this whole episode is like my
This is
soapbox.
Cameron's. Cameron cares deeply.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But this idea that you don't have to eat everything.
Right.
And I think this is really ingrained into us in our culture of like how many of us, it's like you need to finish everything on your plate. Like that is something that so many people, their parents were like, you got to finish everything on your plate, often accompanied with some guilt, right? They're starving kids in whatever area of the world. And so you're lucky to have this much food.
Or associated in my household, it was associated with like being a good boy. I was a family of all boys, and then I had all boys. And there's this thing about being a big eater, right? Especially because like my shortest brother is 5.5, 6 inches taller than I am. So like I was the runt of the litter by a lot. And so for me, being a big eater was this like sign that I belonged, that I was manly, And so being a big eater was a big deal. And so I definitely I lick my plate clean, fill it back up and get seconds and lick that plate clean. That meant I was being manly or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's just, we sometimes carry these, family customs or cultural customs, and we don't even realize that we've done that. And so it's like, no, I have this. I should eat it all, right? Someone made me this plate of cookies or this pie. Like I need to eat it all to show that I appreciate them.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really dangerous. And this actually leads us to a broader conversation about the influence of environment and culture.
Yeah.
And this is one of the difficulties with weight loss is a lot of times we look at it as a self-control failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're overweight because you have no self-control. And that's just not fair.
Mm-hmm. Or we blame genetics.
Or we blame genetics. Yeah. They always say genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And so with this, it's like, let's take a look at the cultural milieu that we're in. We have fast food on almost every corner.
Oh yeah.
Portion sizes at restaurants are huge. You go to Europe and it's like, why am I getting like an appetizer for my meal? Like I don't get what's going on, right? We've come to expect these huge meals. So many of our social engagements are built around food or high calorie drinks. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Even the price of and ubiquity of ultra processed foods, right? Ultra processed foods have a lot of calorie density and tend to be very nutrient poor and also tend to be very cheap. And so it's like, well, I only have this much money to spend. I could buy fruits and vegetables, or I could buy way more calories for the same price.
Yeah.
Again, long-term.
It's hyper palatable. And then I don't have to make.
Yeah.
I don't have to turn it into anything. It's just ready.
Yeah. And so that and other cultural trends just makes it easy to put on extra weight over the years. And so I think understanding that like it's not necessarily our fault for the cultural cross currents that we're often caught in.
Right.
And so looking at what are small and simple things that I can do to adjust my environment and to adjust my habits so that I start to make the healthier choices, the easier choices. I make the choices that are going to lead to long-term health. And I architect my environment in such a way to support that. And there's a helpful mental model here, and it's short-term hard, long-term easy, or short-term easy, long-term hard. And so short-term easy is to just continue to be swept up in that cultural cross current, is to just make decisions the way that we've always made them, and to not really have any guidelines around food. And while that's easy, right? I don't have to cook tonight. And that's really cheap and that's really easy. Over the long term, it ends up being really hard when we look at outcomes in terms of metabolic health, dealing with the sequela of metabolic disease, of obesity and diabetes and cardiovascular disease and just diminished function, right? I can't get upstairs. I can't make it to the curb to pick up my mail. Like that is long-term excruciatingly hard.
Right.
I miss out on events with loved ones, with friends and family because my metabolic health is so poor.
Right. Well, your body is dictating what you can and can't do in your life instead of your desires and your passions and your, what you really want to do is being dictated to you by what your body is or isn't capable of.
Yeah.
And that to me is the ultimate sign of health. The healthier we are, the more I'm in charge of what I can and can't do. If my body is the thing restricting me from being able to do what I want, then I probably have some changes I need to make.
Absolutely.
And so that's what all of these tips that we're giving really are designed around taking back control of, can I stay in charge of what I can and can't do with my body?
Yeah. Well, and so just like understanding that making these changes, like there will be some natural resistance to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes with our own psychology, sometimes from friends and family, right? Well, why are you eating different than what we're eating? Or why are you doing this, right? Having to deal with the discomfort of questions like that.
You don't want any of grandma's green Jello salad or grandma's pie or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but no, she's not going to disown me if I don't have the pie or whatever it is. And it's honestly not my favorite. I like it because it's nostalgic and whatever, but I'd rather actually have this instead. And having both of them is what I normally do. And I really don't want to do that. And so, no, I'm not going to have some of grandma's pie.
Well, it was interesting. I ended up getting some Cookie Crisp the other day because I remember loving that as a kid, right? I'm like, cookies for breakfast. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway,
right.
And I just had this like super fond memory of Cookie Crisp, right? Like I love Cookie Crisp. And I ate some and I was like, this isn't how it used to taste. And, maybe they changed some stuff. But I think a lot of that was nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
I remembered it being a certain way. And so I wanted to recreate that experience. And then as I was eating it, I was like, this isn't even enjoyable. Like, why am I eating this? Like, it was okay, but it wasn't the same way. And
That's
so, like, we can still try things out, but we don't have to eat all of it, right?
All of it. Yeah. And so that's the thing. You don't have to eat everything that you put on your plate. So when you're standing in line at the family barbecue or family, kind of the potluck meals that we have when we get together with families, as you're standing in that family buffet line, you don't have to eat everything. Make a food plan and say, here's what I'm going to do. And only eat the things that you really want to eat. If you taste something and it's like, oh, this isn't as good as I remember, or I don't love this recipe for that thing, like it's okay to leave it on your plate and throw it away. Like that's fine. Scan the table, find the things, make a plan before you go through the line of these are the 5 things that I want or whatever, and go through and don't feel like you have to add a little bit of everything and then a lot of the things you really like. Instead, just get the main things that you really like, have an amount that's satisfying to you, and stick with that, and you're going to be a lot better off in the long run.
Yep. Next tip. This is a hard one for me.
And me too. Actually,
Personal confessions again.
Yeah.
Use a dessert plate for meals.
Yeah.
So again, like you look at the way that the standard American meal is plated, and it's just a big old plate. Like this is a dinner plate. This is an American dinner plate, right?
Right.
Maybe exaggerating a little bit, but having that larger plate, like there's just this we feel this need, like, oh, I've got to fill my whole plate. And so if we just use a smaller plate, right, we use a dessert plate, we still get that same visual satisfaction. Oh, I filled my plate.
Right.
But without but significantly reducing the amount of calories that we're taking in.
Yeah.
And even if we go back to get seconds, it's seconds in dessert plate sizes versus standard dinner plate sizes.
Right.
And so that can help us kind of give some visual cues and help us to calibrate. So a lot of times our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, right?
Yeah.
But then we force it down anyway. And so just making that a little bit smaller can help us to make better choices around what we're thinking on. And I only have so much room on the plate. I guess I'm not going to get everything. I'm just going to get my 5 favorites.
It narrows the choices that you can put on your plate. And then still, if there's something that you're like, oh, that was really good, I'd like some more. Now you've eaten fewer calories up to that point, and maybe there's something on your plate that you're like, I didn't like that as much. I'm going to go scrape that off into the garbage and go get the other thing that I really did like. And you're still calories ahead or behind, or I don't know. You're ahead in the game because you ate what you chose to eat instead of just what you felt compelled to eat.
Yeah. And that's actually a switch that I've made in everyday life. So I actually always use a smaller plate for dinner.
I do too.
And it helps like a ton. And it's interesting because a lot of times when family comes over, we actually get out the big dinner plates to feed everyone, or even the big like paper plates.
Yeah.
And it's significantly bigger than what I'm used to eating. And just that small change, like I tend to eat quite a bit more.
I did too.
Just
Well,
not even super consciously.
right. And there is a little bit of like the free food mentality that like when you're with family
Oh,
and other
totally.
people brought things and whatever, it's like free food and you tend to eat more when it's free food. But so you have to just check yourself in those ways. But I do too, actually. I eat off of the salad plate instead most nights. And that allows me to still get that visual cue of eating it or taking, what feels like a big portion because it filled the plate, eating that, and then going back and getting seconds and eating that, because that really is so ingrained in my brain.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to overcome that, like, I have to be a big eater. I have to be a good boy and clean my plate. Like, I don't do a very good job at being like, I'm full. I can get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
And so that for me is a really important thing, that I eat off a smaller plate, because then it just naturally controls those portion sizes.
Well, and it's working with your psychology instead of against it. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that a lot of us do is it's like, I'm just going to make these crazy changes. And it's like, but I know this about my psychology. And so if we appreciate that a little bit more, right? Like, this is how I grew up. This is really hard to resist. And so within that context, how do I make some small shifts to make it a little bit healthier, right? Like,
Right.
it's on a spectrum. It's not either like good food, bad food. And the whole conversation of good foods or bad foods misses the point and causes unnecessary shame. And it's just what's going to lead me in the direction of my long-term goals, what's going to lead me in the opposite direction. And how can I leverage my psychology, or how can I leverage these tools to work with my psychology instead of against it, so that there's just less resistance and I'm more likely to be consistent in these behaviors.
Yeah. And so one of those other kind of psychological tips for navigating the buffet line for the family dinner or party or work party or whatever it is be one of the last people in line. Instead of being first in line,
I'm
when
always
all the
first in
food, I know Mark, he has to make sure he gets his portion of bacon.
I got to get the bacon. It's true.
But being last in line, the meals are less clean, right? So all the dishes have been stirred up a little bit, so they're less visually palatable.
Mhm.
And then you also get a better sense of how many people are at the party, how much is left to take, and things like that. So you tend to take smaller portions when you go later than when you're one of the first ones like Mark. And then the last people don't get to try any of grandma's salad because it's already gone.
But it was delicious.
But yeah, that allows you though to make more mindful decisions and gives you more time to consider what are the things that I want on my plate. And it, instead of just kind of being like, oh, I want some of that. Oh, that looks good. Oh, and you fill up your whole plate and you've double stacked things and whatever. I've seen my dad at buffets is wild. So for a relatively thin guy, he's very active and whatnot. He eats more food than you can even fathom. It's pretty impressive. But he'll often take and put something in between, like some kind of buffer thing. So he'll load his plate and then put like a slice of bread or whatever he can get that kind of, it doesn't matter if your food's touch type thing. And he'll put that down and then stack on top of that. And it's like, oh my goodness, he eats so much. But that type of mentality of like, I've got to load up this plate as much as I can, and I've got to try a little bit of everything so I don't offend so-and-so and so-and-so. Like, nobody's really watching your plate that closely. And if they do, just be like, yeah, sorry, I didn't have room for it today, or I didn't, that wasn't what I was in the mood for, or whatever. But, you've got to kind of protect you and what you're looking to do and keep yourself on track. And so
I'm really happy when people don't load up on all the stuff, because that means later I'll get to have more of the stuff that I really like. I'm like, yeah, don't eat that. You shouldn't do that. Leave it there. We'll definitely throw it away.
yeah.
Okay. So next, and this one is super, super sneaky. This is watch the drinks.
Yeah.
And there's like so many good things to eat and drink during the holidays, right? So I was telling Cameron earlier about back when I lived in Iowa, there was a grocery chain called Hy-Vee, kind of like a Harmon's here in Utah. Anyway, they had this eggnog and it was called holiday custard, and it was so thick and it was just so delicious. Like, especially my brother and I would just down that stuff.
Yeah.
It was really good. But it was basically like drinking cream, right? Like almost
Like seasoned cream.
seasoned cream
Yum.
was pretty close to that.
Sounds delicious.
So good, but just packs a calorie punch, and we were able to finish off like a quart between the two of us super quick, right? It's like
Yeah.
you fill a couple glasses and it's gone.
Right.
And same thing, right? Like
And 1,200 calories later.
yeah, punches and hot chocolate or even like alcoholic drinks are pretty popular during the holidays. The thing to remember is that alcohol actually has a higher has more calories per gram than does carbohydrate or protein.
Yep.
So fats are about 9 calories per gram. Alcohol is about 7 calories per gram. And then carbohydrate and protein are about 4 calories per gram. And just for the grammar Nazis, that is kilocalories, not calories. It's calories with a big C. So there you go. But those alcoholic drinks can still pack a big caloric punch.
Right. They just add up really fast. You don't realize how much you've had. And so it's easy to just take in more calories that way. And we have to be careful because with adult beverages, it can sometimes blunt our decision making in terms of how many other calories we're going to have. And so sometimes that can compound to the other snacky foods, and some make you crave salty foods a little bit more or things like that. And so it can increase snacking. So you just have to be careful with those things. And again, try to measure that out, create a plan going in of this is how much I'm going to have versus just kind of freewheeling it. So that you can stay on plan. So you can always, water is always a good choice. Sparkling waters, if you like those, having an alternative that you like that's satisfying and feels like it meets the occasion is often a good game plan too. But then, making sure that you stay on plan and don't sabotage that plan with drinks, juices for breakfasts and things like that can add calories really quickly and spike your blood sugar really high so that it triggers more storing of fat and things like that. So just be careful with the drinks. It adds up.
Yeah. Again, bottom line is like we can enjoy ourselves during the holidays, but it's can I have these guidelines? Can I have these bumpers so that I still stay on track? And so if there's certain drinks or certain foods I really want to enjoy, like still enjoy those, but do so in moderation. And like Cameron said,
right,
the plan for those things.
Well, and people will often be like, oh, but I don't want to have to be thinking about that because then it reduces my joy. But I'm like, I can see that at the same time. You know what reduces your joy is the guilt you feel afterwards. And so actually you'll have more joy because you can still enjoy those things, but doing so in more of a metered way allows you to celebrate those successes afterwards. And you actually have more joy instead of the instant gratification and then guilt. And so you actually have more enduring happiness from that when we can enjoy the things that we love, but do so in more of a metered way, like I said, and then enjoy the fact that we feel better, that we, stuck to our plan and all those things actually brings more enduring happiness than the instant gratification and then guilt afterward. So,
yeah. Well, so that leads us to our tip of don't let guilt be your leftovers.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that's it's what we talked about earlier, right? Like I got to be a good boy, so I got to finish my plate, right? There's some guilt if I don't do the behavior. And so I think that's the same way. Like it can look like someone, grandma made her famous pie and I didn't eat enough, or someone brought me this whole plate of cookies and I should show them that I appreciate that, and so I need to eat all their cookies.
Right, or keep it around the house.
Yeah,
right. So we often don't want to eat it, but we keep. So during the holidays, especially like in my neighborhood and some of the neighborhoods I've lived in, like giving Christmas gifts to neighbors and friends is a big deal. And so you wind up with just all of this stuff, right? Just all this food. And I don't really want to keep it around. I don't really want to eat it, but you feel guilty because your neighbor gave it to you. You feel guilty throwing it away. And some of it you may want to eat because it's delicious. But keeping it around doesn't really benefit our long-term game plan. And so there's this fear too that's ingrained in all of us of like, we don't want it to go to waste.
Yep. Don't waste that food.
Don't waste that food. The problem is it will go to our waste if we don't get rid of it. So it's okay. I give you permission right now. You have been given permission to take a bite and throw it away, or maybe not even take a bite. If you already know how it tastes, and you really don't want those calories and you really don't want to make that part of your plan, just throw it away. It's okay. They'll never know. And honestly, it's protecting your long-term health and keeping you from self-sabotage. And so it's okay to throw it away. The minute it was purchased, the minute they made it into those cookies or whatever it is, it's already gone to waste. It's no longer, going to that starving child in Africa. It's no longer benefiting anybody else. And so it's already gone to waste. Don't put it on your waste to avoid it. It's not going to save you money. It's not replacing other calories that you're going to eat. We don't tend to say, well, I'm not going to have dinner because I had those cookies, right? And so it's not really saving you any time, money, anything else. And so just it's okay. You have been given permission to just throw it out.
Yeah. Well, and I think also what is time scale, right? I may have spent that money at the time to buy that food.
Yeah.
But if I continue to have dietary choices that lead to poor metabolic health over the long term, that actually can get very expensive.
Or
right?
way more expensive in the long run.
When I'm trying to manage the sequela of those diseases, like again, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, etc., that can get very, very expensive. And just modifications that I have to make to what I do because of poor health can actually be very expensive in the long run. And so if we maybe zoom out a little bit and look at, well, what are those, I feel like I'm saving money now by eating this, but am I actually not doing that at all? If I look over, decades, does that actually end up costing me more in the long run? Not only in money, but in terms of health, in terms of quality of life.
Yeah.
Again, this goes back to that idea of short-term easy, long-term hard, short-term hard, long-term easy. What is the downstream effects of these choices repeated over years and decades?
Yeah.
And so again, this is not about making just major overhauls to our lifestyle all at once, but it is, how can I turn that dial and make these small, simple, sustainable changes that can then compound over years and help me to have better health over the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea, is those subtle, sustainable things that you can do and reapply every time you go to a family party and every time you go to a buffet or whatever it is. And so one of my favorites, whenever I know that this is a trigger moment of like, this could turn into me overeating. One of the things I like to do is have a snack right before I go.
Mm-hmm.
I'll eat 100 to 150 calories of something before I go. I often do this before I drive home even, so that I don't go home and just hit the pantry and snack and stuff.
Oh yeah, totally.
But have 100, 150 calories of a snack so that you're not going in with this like, oh, I'm so starving, I'm going to eat everything mentality. And that helps to trigger some of those sating hormones and things like that, ghrelin, leptin, all those things. It helps us, with our blood sugar regulation, all of those things that helps us not eat quite as much during. And then we're in a better spot when we're not hungry to make choices instead of kind of what we're compelled to eat because we're so hungry. And everything looks really good when you're hungry. Whereas if you can curb that just a little bit, it allows us to make more decisions instead of just react to those things. So as far as tactics for the family party, like that's the sweet spot. If you can do that, then it helps set up all the other decision kind of tree that we talked about for managing those tricky family parties or company parties and stuff.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit now and let's talk about movement activity, how we can keep that up so that it's supporting those healthy decisions that we're making.
Weather's getting colder, seasons are changing. It's hard sometimes to maintain our health and fitness through the holidays. And then it's a busy time of year.
It is. And I think it's because of that, right? There's all these family events coming up. I'm busy. I'm trying to prepare. I'm thinking about making plans or traveling, or I got to make all the food or I got to get all the gifts for whatever holidays. And it can feel overwhelming. And so we just let some of those other things slide and we say like, oh, I'll pick that up in the new year.
Yeah.
And then it becomes hard to reestablish that habit versus we might need to modify some of the things that we're doing to handle the hectic nature of life during the holidays. But having a plan can really help. And
Well, and it helps avoid self-sabotage too. If we do feel poorly because we ate 8 of our kids' Snickers bars out of their Halloween bag, or because we went to that family party and overate and whatever, or overdrank or whatever, and then we don't feel well the next morning, we're less likely to stay on plan with our movement and exercise.
Yeah. And so the next tip is to keep exercise in the plan.
Yep.
And the idea with this is having a plan in the first place. We want enough structure to our plan that it's moving us in the direction of our long-term goals, but we also want enough flexibility within that plan that we can live life as it comes.
Yeah.
And so a great example of this is I was on a trip over the weekend and I didn't have the gym equipment usually available to me. And so what I did is I brought some push-up handles, I brought some bands, and I modified my usual routine to fit the circumstances of what I was going to be doing. And we just ended up doing a lot of stuff. We were really busy throughout the day. And so my workouts weren't necessarily the same length as they usually would be, but it was getting something in. It was keeping that habit consistent. So that one, like I was still getting some training effect. I was at least maintaining what I'd gained, and I was keeping the habit alive by doing something every day.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things is reestablishing that habit after a period of break. And so keeping, even if it's more minimal in what we're doing, keeping the habit alive of doing something every day intentionally for our fitness in terms of cardio and strength training really does help keep you on track. Even if what you're doing isn't the most effective, it's still preserving what you've gained in terms of habits and patterns and things. So
yeah, well, I really like one thing that I used to do was, like these are going to be my exercise days. One thing that I really like is just having the mindset of I'm going to exercise in some form every day. It may not be as long, it may not be as intense, but doing something every day, then it doesn't give me the excuse of like, oh, is this one of my non-workout days? I'm only need to do this many workouts this week, and so I'll skip today. And then the next day comes and it's really busy, and it's like, oh, I can squeeze,
Yeah.
And so when we have that mindset of exercise days, non-exercise days, it can be easy to skip the exercise days. But when it's this mentality of like, well, I always do something,
right?
It's easier to keep that habit alive and stay consistent. And that consistency matters so much over the long run, right? When we're talking about years and decades, any one workout is not making the difference in your health. It's stringing those together in a way that I get the adaptations I'm looking for, and I'm also able to recover from that training, so that I'm not getting burnt out, I'm not getting injured, things like that.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times working with clients that they're like, yeah, I want to start out at like 3 to 4 days a week, and you'd see like we get to Thursday, so there's only 4 days left. And then they're starting their first workout of the week on a Thursday. And you're like, so now you're going to do 4 days in a row instead of, so I'd rather people do something, like you said, lighter every day. The other thing in terms of keeping our exercise on plan through the holidays is getting that VO2 test done. Dialing in your zones and your heart rate, or your heart rate zones, and knowing what your VO2 max is and things, again, gives you objective data to help keep you on plan, and so that you can test beginning and after and make sure that you've maintained that progress that you've earned all year long. Let's make sure that we keep that and at least maintain, if not continue to grow. But getting a VO2 test done helps us dial in our zones so that we know, okay, with this, like we talked about earlier, periodization, I'm going to focus more on building up a big base of zone 2. Where does that zone 2 need to be so that I can build that up? Really, really helpful to start out with this mindset of I'm going to get this VO2 test done so that I can preserve this through the holidays. It really kicks off the holidays right to help us be able to maintain that through the holidays.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny how psychology works in that we usually want to save our goals for the new year, right? New year, I'll start over, I'll do this. But like we can start over at any time, right? We can set a goal at any time. And so maybe instead of the new year, the goal is, right? Oh, I want to maintain my weight through this holiday period. And so I'm going to get a test.
Yeah. My goal is to not have to set a fitness goal in the new year.
Yeah.
That I'm not so far behind that I'm like, okay, I'm getting back on track, or that my goal is that I'm not getting back on track for as my New Year's fitness goal, right?
Yeah.
That's a good goal to have.
All right. Last tip is to plan active time with friends, with family during the holidays. And it's really interesting, right? This plays back into what is family culture like. And so, I've talked with Cameron about this. My family culture often is we get together and we eat a lot of good food, and we don't often move a lot. Sometimes we will, but a lot of times it's just sitting around the house, play a game, watch a show, maybe throw the football a little bit in the backyard. But we're much more sedentary, as opposed to Cameron's family get-togethers. Very different.
Very different. And honestly, we do a lot of movement and activity. Even the activities that we like to do, we do some sitting around, but it's usually late in the evening after we've done stuff all day. But even if we have a few days in between Christmas and New Year's and stuff, and we're home and not up at the cabin or something, we'll often like go bowling, or we'll go and do activities. We'll rent out a pickleball facility and do like a whole family tournament where because everyone in the family is so active, it makes it really fun to do big activities like that because everyone can participate. And so we'll have like a couple of kids courts where the kids are over there playing and modeling the behavior that they see the parents then doing. And so that is ingrained in our kids. It's fun to see as my older children have moved away and the habits and things that they have kept, because they didn't like necessarily working out with us. But it's so funny to see a couple months into them having moved away being like, oh, I started to feel terrible. I didn't realize like not having programmed sports or us kind of forcing them to do activities, go on hikes and whatever.
I'm so grateful now.
Yeah. Now they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how bad I would feel when I don't have that. And so, talking to my son the other day, he's like, yeah, I have this routine now where I do push-ups and squats and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh yeah, the kid that would never do it is doing it on his own now because he realizes the impact of how he feels when we're not there forcing him to do it. And so forcing is maybe a little harsh, but
strongly encouraging.
Well, but it's just part of our lifestyle where we just do those things. And so they just kind of get swept up, and all the cousins are doing it too. And all the, the whole family's doing it. So we're going to go cross country ski and get lost in the woods and have to bushwhack through this.
We've seen a lot of cool places.
Yeah. Oh, we've seen some amazing places, but our version of cross country skiing is more like backcountry bushwhacking with the wrong equipment, with narrow cross country skis instead of backcountry skis and
Make
stuff.
it an adventure.
Yeah, but it's fun, and we do a lot of fun things. And so that's the idea: is we're leveraging then the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So NEAT, we're leveraging that to benefit our health and wellness, but it's in activities that we all enjoy doing. So whatever that is for your family. And sometimes it's just going to the park and giving gloves or hats or, socks and underwear and stuff to the homeless. And we're just up and moving and doing something instead of just sitting around playing board games and stuff like that, which is also fun. But we reserve that for like those last couple of hours before we go to bed at night, instead of kind of an all day thing where we sit around and eat and play games, and you wind up just eating more and more. And so, yeah.
I'm laughing because you and I both have some feelings about board games.
Yeah, they're called board games for a reason, because they're terrible.
I'm in the minority in my family. My family loves.
I have been banned from board games because I'm a little too competitive, and I get a little and so I just don't enjoy them because I hate losing, especially in something that's stupid and doesn't matter.
I feel that.
You tell that I'm an adult about these things.
But anyway, like just that lifestyle activity is just this huge dial on the calorie expenditure side of things. Yeah. And so I know we've talked about this before, but just briefly talk about our total daily energy expenditure, right? How much energy, how many calories are we burning throughout the day? A big portion of that is made up of our resting metabolic rate, right? Just what it costs to keep the lights on, organs, everything like that. And then we have some from digesting food. So we call that the thermic effect of food. That's 10 to 15% on average. And then exercise is about 5% on average. NEAT, right? What Cameron talked about, that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, can be like 20% of our daily calories, right? And that can be a big range person to person, right? Sometimes we see like 800 calorie difference in what people are burning just through their lifestyle and activity. And so it's just this, as we again, architect our lifestyle to support more activity throughout the day, then that just becomes a natural consequence, right? We're just burning more calories as part of our lifestyle. It's not this conscious thing that I have to think about. It's built in to things. It's just the way that it is with Cameron's family. Like, oh, we're just going to go be doing these activities. Like, I don't even have to think about it. I'm going to bring exercise clothes because I know we're going to be active.
Yeah, I don't bring like sweats and, cuddly clothes, sweats and pajamas and stuff. I bring workout clothes. Like I'll bring one hoodie and one like pair of pajama pants or something like that, maybe. But usually it's just like workout clothes for the whole time, because I know that every day we're going to do 2 to 3 activities. Some of those are like maintenance of the cabin type stuff, or chopping wood and chainsaw and then splitter and then stacking. And so we're just staying active and moving and doing the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but you collapse into bed every night, and so you sleep really well. It's great. But and it's not that we don't have way too much food and good food and things like that, but we're also moving and kind of balancing that out instead of just kind of sitting around and snacking all the time.
Yeah. One more thought that I'll add in. There's this book that's based on Adlerian psychology. So Alfred Adler was a psychologist, and the book is called The Courage to be Disliked. And I like this concept, but as we talked about in the beginning, sometimes there's going to be internal resistance to these changes. There's often going to be external resistance to these changes from friends and family. And so taking this tack of the courage to be disliked by friends or family, right? The courage to be disliked by your own ego. Because again, we're looking at things over the long term, and it's biasing our choices in a way that our body isn't telling us no. And sometimes like the family or friends are not going to want to be super active. They're not going to want to go out and do those things. And so it might look like, hey, I'm going to miss out on this game time because I'm going to be out on a walk, or I'm going to go to the park, or I'm going to do this activity. And sometimes it might start with doing those activities yourself, right? It's taking that step, taking that leap of courage, and having that courage to be disliked. I like this concept. But in favor of building habits and lifestyles that lead to long-term health for you, and also act as a living invitation for other people to make those small and simple changes, so that they can enjoy the fruits of what you're experiencing.
Right. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm going on a run. Come join me. Like, we can take it easy. We'll take it at your pace, blah, blah, blah. But getting other people involved helps grow those things into habits, and forming new traditions that are part of a healthier pattern and a part of a healthier kind of ecosystem that you build within your family unit and friend unit, so that you're creating new traditions, but that are based more in the lifestyle that you'd like to lead, instead of the one that's kind of what you've inherited. And there are definitely elements of that you'll probably want to keep. And there maybe are some things that you're like, no, I think we could switch that up and it'd be better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, finding that balance so that you can live that healthy, active lifestyle, that's the key.
Absolutely. Again, that really is the key. How do I live that healthy, active lifestyle? And so we hope that these tips were helpful. These will be available as in the show notes as a download. And so you can give those to your clients. Again, really, it's how can I make these small, simple, sustainable changes and begin to have my lifestyle biased towards those healthy choices.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
thanks so much for joining us. As always, remember to like, follow, and subscribe for more content like this, and we'll catch you next time. Ready to take your metabolic testing to the next level? Visit KORR.com to learn more about purchasing our metabolic test equipment.